Last time that we were talking about things, we had made our way to the Zhao dynasty. And we had talked about how they were starting now to move into iron making. So we're kind of just now starting to get into iron making. And we have been seeing that, there's been several dynasties. We talked about the Shang and now we're talking about Zhao. And these dynasties tend to go in the cycle. So we're going to talk about that next year. Go ahead and make a 3 and write down Dynasty Cycle. So write down the word there in red. So 3, Dynasty Cycle. And then make an equal sign and write down refers to the rise and fall of dynasties. So we got 3, Dynasty Cycle, and then equal sign refers to the rise and fall of dynasties. So when we're talking about dynastic cycle, you can see it here in our graphic. You can see our dynasties here and kind of the cycle, how it goes in. So basically, a new dynasty, a new family takes over. And generally, they start doing pretty good things. They restore peace to the land. They appoint people to be loyal to them to go work for them. They give land to the peasants so the peasants can farm. They have building projects like irrigation systems and roads. Irrigation system is when you basically build out waterways that go to farmland. So that way you can farm more stuff. And you repair defensive walls around cities. However, after a couple of generations, emperor takes over. So it'd be like the emperor's like great grandson. Okay. When the dynasty starts to get older, then the great grandson of that dynasty starts to screw up, right? They start neglecting their government duties. The people that work for them are kind of corrupt. It means they're basically taking bribes to ignore things that are happening. They start to lose control of provinces. They have heavy taxes that they start imposing on people. The defensive walls start to decay. Then there'd be some big problem, a flood, a famine, an earthquake, an invasion, armed bandits in the province, peasant revolt. And then that family, that great grandson of that family gets overthrown. New family takes over. And again, everything's all good when the new family takes over. But eventually, after a couple hundred years, that family starts to get older. They start to get lazy. Then there's a big problem that happens. That family gets overthrown, and then a new family takes over. So let's call it dynastic cycle. And that happens 19 times in China. Go ahead and make a new bullet, and we're going to write down Warring States period. So new bullet and write down Warring States period. 475 to 221 before Common Era. So the Warring States period is kind of referring to a time period when the various lords in China fighting against each other, and there's also an invasion as well into China from the north. So these is various nomadic tribes that live north of China. One of them is called the Qin. And China was also split into all these different independent states. There was 100 different independent states in China that were also competing against each other for control of China. And eventually what ends up happening is that our Qin, these invaders from the north, are going to eventually end up kind of taking over in China. Let's go make a 1, and let's write down first, nomadic tribes invaded from the north. So you had these nomadic tribes from the north, and admittedly there was the Great Wall at this time period. It wasn't really like how it looks in the picture. Like how it looks in the picture is how the Great Wall is going to look much later on. Kind of how the Great Wall is that how it looks like in the picture. That's how the Great Wall is going to look when it gets more to the 1400s, 1500s in terms of Chinese history. At this time period, before Common Era, you don't have kind of a huge wall like this. A lot of it was just kind of like dirt that was up real high, and there might have been other places that were made out of brick and so forth, but it wouldn't have been kind of a large structure like this and such. Eventually gets its way, but not quite in the year 700 before Common Era. So you had these invaders from the north, and as I said, eventually the Qin, who are one of these groups from the north, eventually they end up taking over all of China. Let's go ahead and make a 2 and write down conquered by the Qin. So conquered by the Qin. So eventually these northern invaders end up winning and taking over the country. All right, that is where we are going to stop at with our notes for today.